Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Venny, and I'm one of the tech integrators for the district here. I, along with Julia Evji, will be presenting today's Google Certification Level 1 training focusing on Google Calendar and Google Sites. A couple of housekeeping items to get before we get underway here. First, we ask that you make sure you mute your microphone. To do that, move your mouse towards the bottom center of the screen. There should be 3 buttons. The one on the left is your microphone. Please click it and make sure that it is red, indicating your microphone is off. We ask that you keep your microphone muted for the entire session today. Unfortunately, due to the large number of participants, we can't have a verbal interactions. If you do have any questions, we ask that you type them into the chat. Speaking of the chat, I need you to draw your attention up there right now. It's in the upper right-hand corner. It's a white button with a gray text box. Click on that. Please type your first and last name and hit enter. That is how Julia and I will be recording attendance for today. We'll get you checked off in My Learning Plan and get you credit for today's professional learning. I also want to make sure that you're aware that this session is being recorded, and we are doing so that we can prepare a video to share out with you later. Usually takes about a day or so before you get that video, just due to some processing time. But that way you can have a video that you can go back and pause and rewind at your own pace. A couple more things before I turn it over to Julia. 1 second here. All right, there we go. Today we're going to demonstrate some of the skills that may be covered in the units and the exam for the Google certification. This is a supplemental course that will provide participants with a visual demonstration of skills. These courses are to assist in learning about the certification tasks. They do not replace the units in the Google Teacher Center. Learners must still complete those lessons and unit reviews prior to taking the exam. Please limit questions in the chat to those that are related to the skills being discussed. And also avoid answering one another in the chat. That way I don't, or Julia doesn't miss a question because the chat had too much material in it. This last thing I'm going to say is extremely important, and that is you cannot disclose any specific items in regards to the certification exam. Google requires all who take the exam to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Therefore, we cannot share specific exam details. Failure to follow these guidelines will result in your removal from this session. So all of that out of the way, I'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Randy Venny, and I'll be working with Julia Evji. We are both Google certified educators at level 1, level 2, and Google certified trainers. So we've gone through this process before. However, keep in mind that the exam is all done through Google, so we can try to help you as best we can, but Google is in charge of all things related to the exam and certification. So without any further ado, I'm going to stop presenting my screen and I'm going to throw it over to Julia.
Good afternoon. My name is Julia Evji, and I'm going to be starting out today's training by demonstrating some of the aspects of Google Calendar. So Randy, right now, can you just see my screen and verify that it's in the Gmail account?
You are there, yep.
Okay. So today we're going to demonstrate some of the aspects of Google Calendar, and we've taken this information from those units from Google. And so I'm going to start today by accessing my Google Calendar. I want to click on this icon right here. I call it the waffle. It looks like 9 dots. And then I'm going to find my Google Calendar. Okay, so we're here in the calendar, and I'm actually just going to skip ahead to the future where I have some more openings. Here we go. So the first thing that we're going to go over today is how to create a new calendar. Now, to create a new calendar, you need to click on these 3 horizontal lines, and this sidebar appears right here. So right now what you see is I have these current calendars. I have the calendar with my name on it. That's my default calendar. Then I have a calendar called Reminders and a calendar called Tasks. If I want to create a new calendar, I'm going to go right here where it says Other Calendars, and click on the plus button. Then I want to choose Create New Calendar. So for my example today, I'm going to create a calendar called Science Club. If I give it a name, the description is optional. Here I have the time zone. We're going to leave that as is. And I just want to hit this blue Create Calendar. You'll see it says the creation is in progress down here. And then it says it was successfully created. Perfect. Now I want to go back and find that new calendar. So I'm going to click on this back arrow. And now what you'll notice is that calendar appears here underneath my calendars. Again, this is my default, reminders, my newly created Science Club calendar, and tasks. What you'll notice is these calendars are listed in alphabetical order. And next to the name of the calendar is a color with a check mark. If you want to change the color of this calendar, all you have to do is hover over the name of the calendar, go over here to the 3 vertical dots, and then you'll see some options for changing the color. Now my Science Club calendar is green, and when I create any events over here in the actual calendar, those will appear green as well. Now that I have my Science Club calendar created, I actually want to share this calendar. So again, I'm going to hover over the name of the calendar, go to the 3 vertical dots, and I want to go to Settings and Sharing. So I can scroll through my settings right here. And one option I have to share my calendar is by clicking on this Get Shareable link. So here I could actually copy this link and paste it to share it with someone. Paste it in an email, paste it in some sort of communication device. I can also share my calendar with specific people. So here you'll see my name. I'm the creator of the calendar. And I have this option to hit Add People. So here I'm going to type in the name of someone that I want to add and give access to this calendar. As soon as I start typing the name, a list of matching fields appears. I'm going to click on that person's name. Let me invite Randy to this science calendar. Again, type on his name and select the correct Randy. Now, I want to bring your attention down here to the permissions. You have to decide how these 2 people are going to interact with your calendar. Right now, they will be able to see all event details. You can click on this drop-down arrow and you have some more options. Maybe you only want them to see free or busy times. Maybe you want to allow them to make changes to the event. All of these options are available here. I'm going to leave it at See All Event Details. And then when I click Send, these people are going to receive an automated email from Google asking them to view or see this Science Club calendar. I know I have successfully shared this with the people because their names now appear underneath my name. When I look at the person's name and I follow across, I'll see those settings that I have for that specific person. So I can click on that drop down, and again, I have those options. Maybe I only want this person to see free/busy. So I can click on that and change the settings for specific people. Okay, so now we're going to go back by clicking on this arrow and start looking at our calendar. The first thing that I'm going to demonstrate today is how to create an event. And this is what you're probably most comfortable with. You do this as part of your job requirement. So to create an event, you can either hit this Create button up here at the top, or you can actually click on the calendar in a specific time or date range. So let me show you that. I'll click here on Monday, and then I'm going to create an event. You can see right here, this word event is in blue. That's the type of creation that I have selected. I'm going to go ahead and click More Options right away. When I have the More Options, it goes full screen, and I can easily see all of the options available to me. So the first thing that I want to do is add a title. Maybe I'm going to go on a field trip. Okay. And here is the date of the field trip, and it's starting at 11 a.m., ending at 11:30 a.m. If I click on this end time, I'll see a drop down appear, And here I can actually scroll and see how long I want the event to last. So maybe my field trip's going to last 4 hours, so I'll select that. Okay, now I have my end time. I could make this event last all day. Watch what happens when I click this all day option. Now my end time disappears because it's all day. If I uncheck that, now it's a specific time. I could also make this event repeat. Clicking on this drop down right here where it says does not repeat, I could change that to monthly. Maybe I go on a monthly field trip. Okay, let's look over here where it says event details. So here I could add a location. This is going to actually bring up the address of the location of your event. So if I'm going on a field trip to the Milwaukee Public Museum, as soon as I start typing in that text, I'll see a list of auto-populated options, and then I can select the Milwaukee Public Museum. Puts that address in there for me. Next, we're going to talk about notifications. So by default, your calendar events will always get a notification 10 minutes before. Now, this notification appears as a pop-up in your browser. So usually down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll have a little calendar pop-up appear. You'll also have an audible noise that's reminding you 10 minutes before this field trip event. If you want to remove the notification, all you have to do is click on the X. You could also add multiple notifications. Clicking right here, Add Notification, gives me another time to notify me. Maybe I want to change this to a day before. So I'm going to click on Minutes and change that to Days. You can come over here and change this to 1 day before. Again, this is going to give me a notification as a pop-up. Now, if I click on this notification right here, I have one other option. I could also receive an email notification. So that's going to be automated, come to my Gmail, and it's just going to remind me of this field trip 1 day before. You'll notice that this field trip is going to be on my default calendar, that one that's named after myself. If I want to change this to be part of the Science Club calendar, I can click on that drop-down, and here I would select the Science Club calendar. Remember, I made that calendar green, so that color changed to be a green event. Okay, next I have an option to add some information to this event. Here I could click on the paperclip icon and add an attachment. Here are all my options. I can add something from my drive, a shared drive, something someone has shared with me, or I could upload a file from my computer, something that I have saved to my hard drive. So I'm just going to pick something as a sample and click Select. And here that Google Doc has now been added, and it is now part of the event. I could also freehand type some text down here, like in this text box. I select the text, I can change it to bold, italic, or underlined. I could also add a numbered list as well as a bulleted list. Here I could also link, so I could type in the name of an address, a web address, or I could paste in a web address here. And then again, this would be part of the event. Let's take a look at the right-hand side of the screen right now. Underneath this Guest tab, I want to invite someone to have this event as well. So I'm going to type in a person's name. Again, that list populates. All I have to do is click on their name, and now they're added as a guest. You can add multiple guests. Let's invite Randy to this field trip. Click on his name, and here I can see Randy has been added. If you want to remove a guest, all you have to do is hover over that person's name and then click on the X to remove them. In addition to adding guests to your event, you could also add rooms. So when you click on this Rooms tab, you're going to see rooms that are available in your domain. So here in Racine Unified, it could be a physical room, You could also reserve things like projectors and actual items. Those are all considered rooms here in the event. So you can scroll down and see what's available to you. Maybe I need to reserve a room as part of this field trip. I would select that room. And now what you're going to see is when you go back to the guests tab, that room is actually part of the guest list because it reserved that room, and it's going to give that information to the room. So you'll see people that you've invited as well as rooms that you have reserved. Okay, another thing that I want to point out to you when creating an event is you can actually use the Find a Time feature. So this is a nice feature when you're trying to find a time that you and a guest are both available. So because I added Randy as a guest, when I click on this Find a Time feature, it's actually going to show me side by side all of the people who are part of this event. So here's Randy and his schedule. Here's the Science Club calendar, because remember, I'm creating this field trip as part of the Science Club. And then it also shows me the calendar for that room that I reserved. And these are all side by side so that if anything was scheduled, I could see that visually going across the screen. Okay, so we're going to go back to this event details. It looks like I'm done creating all of the event details for my field trip. And now what I'm going to do is click on this blue Save button. Because I invited Randy, Google Calendar is going to ask me, would you like to send invitation emails to the Google Calendar guests? So if I click send, then Randy is going to receive an email notification. Here you'll see my event has been created. Remember, it's here in green because it's part of the Science Club calendar. I can see that it lasts from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and the location is the Milwaukee Public Museum. If I click on the event, I'll see more details, like that attachment that I added, the text that I typed in, as well as the room that I reserved through my domain. Here it shows that it's part of the Science Club and that it was created by me. Finally, we're going to go over some of the options that you have after you've created an event. Up here at the top, these symbols will tell you what you can do. So the pencil is going to allow you to edit the event. The trash can allows you to delete the event. This envelope symbol allows you to email the guests. And if you click on the 3 vertical dots, you'll have more options. So that is how you create an event on Google Calendar. We're going to move on to talk about how to create a reminder. So I'm going to click on this Create Plus button. Again, I could also click somewhere on my calendar. So this time, instead of having an event, I want to change this to a reminder. So I'll simply click here and you'll notice the change. When I click reminder, I now have fewer options. So a reminder is something that you want to visually be reminded of here on your calendar. So let's say that I send out a weekly newsletter and I want to be reminded of that. I'll give it a title, and then here I can decide the date and time for this reminder. So July 6th is a Monday. I'm going to keep that as a Monday. Right now I'll receive that reminder at 2 p.m. I could have this repeat. So because it's a weekly newsletter, I might want to click on this drop down and change it to weekly on Monday. So let's try that. Again, if I want this to last all day, all I have to do is click on this check mark and you'll notice that the time disappears. But let's keep it at a specific time. Let's change this to later in the day. Okay, so that's all I have to do for my reminder. So I'll click Save. And you can see here that my reminder was created. This is a reminder, so it's in the blue color because that matches my reminder calendar. I also know it's a reminder because of this symbol. It kind of looks like a finger with a string tied around it representing remind. So that's how I know this is different from an event. It's a reminder. Remember that I chose this to repeat weekly on Mondays. So here is my current Monday with the reminder. And if I use my arrow and move forward a week, I'll notice that the reminder was added to the following Monday. That happened automatically as soon as I clicked on that repeat option. Okay, next we're going to talk about how to create a task. So you can click on the plus button or anywhere on your calendar. Let's create a task. Up here at the top, I need to select task. Again, when I choose task, you're going to notice my options are different. So a task is something that I need to get done. It's almost like a checklist. I want to mark it off when I'm done. So my task is that I need to print brochures. Okay, again, I can choose the date and time, or I can make it all day. I can add a description, so maybe some specific things about printing the brochure. I need 200 science fair brochures. And then all I have to do is click right here where it says save. You'll notice that the task looks different. It's in the orange color because tasks on my calendar is orange over here. You'll also notice it has a specific symbol. It looks like a little pencil with a dot next to it. Now, when you have a task, you can actually click on the task and you have the option to mark it as complete. When I click mark as complete, you'll notice that over here on my calendar, the task has a line through it, signifying I'm complete with this task. And it's also changed to a lighter shade of orange. Again, just giving me that visual representation that I'm done with that task. Okay, and the last thing that I'm going to demonstrate here in the calendar is the appointment slot feature. So I want to click here on create. And up at the top, I have the options for appointment slots. So appointment slots are a great way to have people sign up to have an appointment with you. So let's say I have some office hours and I'm going to have these occur on Tuesday. Now the time here you want to really think about for these appointment slots. I'm available for office hours from 2 p.m., let's say, until 4 p.m., so a total of 2 hours. And I want slots that are 30 minutes long. So it's actually going to create slots inside that 2 to 4 p.m. window that are 30 minutes long. Right now, my appointment slots will show up on my default calendar, but I could also click on this dropdown and change it to any of my other calendars. So I'm going to click save. And you'll notice that these appointment slots have been created on my calendar. Here it's in purple because it's part of my default calendar here with my name on it. The appointment slot symbol is right there. It looks like 4 squares to me. Now, when I click on this appointment slot, it's going to give me the option to go to appointment page for this calendar. I'm just going to show you this so users would be able to sign up for those 30-minute slots by following this link that says, go to appointment page for this calendar. So when I click on this, it's going to bring me to my calendar. And I'm on May, and I think I did those in, oh goodness, July. So I'm gonna have to go way far ahead. Here we go. So on July 7th, I can see right here, I have those office hours that were created. Now, let me go back and quickly show you on my calendar, see how it's one big block of time from 2 to 4? But if I'm over here on these appointment slots, it's broken up into those 30-minute chunks. So when someone would go to sign up with me, they would click on one of those 30-minute slots. They're seeing that I have office hours. I selected from 2 to 2:30, and then I could book that appointment with them. So it does look a little bit different when the user goes to sign up for you. They see it broken up into 30-minute chunks, but over here on my calendar, I see my appointment slots as one long time range. Okay, so I'm going to stop demonstrating right now and ask Randy if we have any questions that are related specifically to Google Calendar.
We are up to date on the chat right now, but if anybody has one, now would be a good time to throw them in before we shift gears to Google Sites. Let's see. Courtney's asking, can you assign a Google Meet to the appointments? Why, yes, you can.
Yep,
Julie, do you want to just show that button real
sure.
quick?
So when I hit that create button, here you'll see this add Google Meet video conferencing. So if I click on this, it's actually going to create that link so that when someone sees this event, they would click on the link and be able to join the meet.
It's as simple as that. Cindy's asking, how do you see the individuals who have signed up for your office hours?
That's kind of
So
hard.
on your appointment slots.
Yeah, that's kind of hard for me to show right now because I didn't have anyone show up. But again, when you click on that link,
Okay.
their names would,
Was that July 7th?
yeah, sorry. Their names would show up here. These are openings right now. That's why it just says office hours. But when someone clicks on that, you would be able to see their name and their details. So I can't really demonstrate that right now. Okay.
I'm sorry, there was another question there, and I'm trying to demonstrate the office hours there. I picked one.
Oh, okay. There we go. I'll look at updated. So Randy signed up for my 2:30 slot right here, so I can click on his name. I'll see that appointment slot and then see if it shows up over here if it refreshed. Oh. There we go. So now I can see that Randy's name has filled in this 2:30 time slot. Thanks, Randy. That was helpful.
No problem. And that should answer Susan's question as well. Is a very similar question about will they show up on the teacher's calendar, and the answer to that is yes.
Yep, so we can see it's in both spots.
All right, let's see. Courtney's asking for the appointments with the Google Meet link. Will it be the same for all of them? That's a great question. The answer is no. If you create two separate meetings and use Google Meet for both of them, it's going to have two separate links unless you have it as a recurring meeting. You know, if you have it weekly on Tuesdays, that will be the same link for all of those. But if you create a meeting on Tuesday morning and Thursday afternoon, those will have two separate links. Melanie's asking, how do people view your appointment slots? I had to know when they were, so I jumped ahead to July 7th. And then when I clicked on Julia's office hours, there was a link in there that said go to the appointment page, and that showed me all 4 slots and it allowed me to pick one. Amy's asking if I had to be in your calendar to see that appointment. The answer is yes. I had to be able to go into Julia's calendar.
Yeah, so like I demonstrated before, when I typed in Randy's name and I shared the calendar with him, that's how he was able to see my appointment slots.
All right, I think we're ready to move on here.
Okay.
So Julia, if you could stop sharing for a moment, please. And then I'm going to take over the screen and I'm going to demonstrate Google Sites. All right, Julia, do you see my class link page?
Yes, I do.
All right. So first thing I'm going to say before I actually start demonstrating things here is when the Google certification and the Google Teacher Center wants you to work with Google Sites, you're going to work with what is called the new Google Sites. And once you get into the environment, I'm pretty sure that's the only option you're going to have. But within RUSD, there's still the new sites and what they call the classic sites. And I'll explain and demonstrate what that means. But just keep that in the front of your mind that you're always going to be working with the new Google Sites. So to get there, I'm in my Gmail right now. And I go up to the waffle here in the upper right-hand corner. And you may have to scroll a little bit. Mine is, I moved it towards the top intentionally. It's this icon right here. It says Sites. And when I click on that, it's going to bring me to the classic sites, which is what I mentioned before. When you're in the exam environment, I'm pretty sure you're going to go right to the new sites. So this is a step only for within the RUSD domain. And you'll notice right here, it says new Google sites. So this is where you want to work. This is where you're going to want to do your practice. So I'm just going to click on that real quick. And what you'll see here is the site's main page. You'll see some templates. Right here are a list of sites that I've previously worked on. And what I'm going to do right now is just create a blank page by clicking on the blank button. And we'll just wait a second for that to load here. All right, so here we have a brand new fresh Google site. And the very first thing you need to do is give it a name. And that is up here in the upper left-hand corner. You just click in that box and start typing. So we'll call it Mr. Venny's class. And as soon as I hit enter, you see the name registers there. It also automatically fills in right here for the name of the site. But you will notice that this one didn't change because this is actually the title for just this specific page. I could call it Mr. Venny's class. I could call it something like welcome. You can name it whatever you want. I mean, I'm really just demonstrating here how that text box works. So it's entirely up to you how you want to name that. You can also change the theme of your site. Over here on the right side, you see a whole mess of buttons that we're going to go into some of them, definitely not all of them. But the one I want you to look at right now, it says, is themes. And when I click on that, you're going to see there's just a very short list of different themes here. When I click on them, it changes the look of the page. It gives it different colors, different fonts, things like that. And then when I click on one like this one called level, you can see there's a few options for different accent colors below. So I'm going to stick with the green one here. You also have the option to change your font if you want a different font to be the main font on there. And Google has intentionally made these choices very limiting, I think, because they want you to make your sites look more uniform. If it were more open-ended, you'd have, maybe you notice with the kids, too many choices, too many ways to go through those things. So you only have a very limited number of options, including colors, including fonts, and that's intentional. It's kind of restrictive, but I think it's important. All right, so that's how you change your theme. You pick your theme. You can go back and change this at any time, even after you have done quite a bit of work on your site. You can come back and change it, and it'll change the colors, it'll change the fonts, but you really shouldn't lose any of the content along the way. And so that's important to note, that if you're not happy with it or you just want to give it a fresh look, you can change that whenever you feel is appropriate. All right, so the next thing I'm going to go over with you is how to add another page. Now, right now, we didn't really do much with this page, and that was intentional. But next to the themes button is the pages button. And when I click on that, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of the menu. And I'm going to click on this plus button, and it's going to ask me for a new page. So I'm going to give this new page a name of resources. I click done. You notice it appears right here on the menu below the main home page. You'll also notice that resources comes up as a button here and then the home page. And this is the way that the people who use your website are going to navigate. They're going to use these buttons here. They won't see any of these things off to the right. And so just so you know that this has automatically happened as soon as I created the page, and it's going to be the way that users navigate this site. So let's add some items to this page, some images, some text. I'm going to go back to the insert button now, and you can see this is where we have a whole lot of buttons. If I want to insert some text, I simply click on the text box button. It automatically places it at the next available space closest to the top. And I'm going to just type in some text real quick. And it's just that simple. You might say, well, the text is kind of small, you know, I'd rather stand out a little more. I'll get into how to make it look a little different shortly. So that's how you add text. The next button over is the images button, and when I click on that, it gives me two choices right away. First, I can upload something. That would be something that is stored on my computer, on my laptop, or I can select. And when I click select, it gives me some more choices. If I happen to know the website address of an image that I want to use, I can copy and paste it here. There's also a Google image search. It will connect to your Google Photos if that's something you use. or you can upload something from your Google Drive. So let's take a look at the Google image search. Let's say I just want to add a picture of a notebook. I type in the word notebook and it gives me a whole bunch of options that I can work with here. Let's add this green guy right here. I'm just going to click on it and then move down here and click on the word insert. And after a few moments, there's my notebook. It should be pointed out that when I use Google image search like this, it automatically filters for items that you are allowed to use. You don't have to worry about copyright or anything of that nature. These are open-ended, free. What's the word I'm looking for? They're free to use, I guess, is lack of a better term. And so you don't have to worry about specifically looking for something with no copyright restrictions. All right, so there we have our image. You'll notice when I click on it, these handles appear that allows me to resize the image to some extent. You'll also notice that I can move it from side to side, but take a notice here that these vertical lines appear when I try to move an item. And that is because Google Sites very strictly limits placement on items. And again, like the themes before, Google wants all sites to look relatively uniform. They want it to look neat and professional. And so you can't just move things wherever you feel like moving them. You can only go within the guidelines that Google has set for you. But what I could do if I wanted is I could make this text box a little smaller. And I could move this up next to the text box if I want to have that as some sort of option, just to make it look a little more up to date. Yeah, see, look at there. Very limited as to what I can do. All right. Just want to make you aware that you do have very restricted movements when it comes to resizing and to moving items around your site. All right, so let's add a few more items here. Below the images button is your Drive button, which gives you access to your Google Drive. When I click on images, if I pick Google Drive, it's only going to show me image files. But if I want to add something more like a Google Slides presentation, then I need to click on this Drive button. And right here, you can see I can go to either My Drive, Shared Drives, or items that are shared with me. I'm going to stay in My Drive, and I'm just going to add this How to Build a Snowman book that I worked on with some first graders. So I click Insert, and right away it puts that Google Slides presentation on my site. And you can see here, there are the buttons that exist in the menu so that you could actually go through this Google Slides presentation just like you would if you were in Google Slides. And likewise, I have the ability to move it around and resize it. The next thing I want to show you how to add, we're going to scroll down this list right here, and we're going to throw in a YouTube video. So I click on the YouTube icon here, and you can see right away I have two options. I can look at amongst the videos that I've uploaded. That's what this one means. Or I can just search for any video within YouTube. So let's say I want to find something from Go Noodle. See, I type in Go Noodle and it gives me a whole lot of options here. And we'll go with this one. Yes, I want to build a snowman. It seems to match. So I click on the video, I click the select button, and there it is. In fact, if I wanted to, I could drag this up and put it next to the snowman. And what's nice about this is it's not a link to that video. Whoever's visiting, students, parents, or whatever, can watch that video right here directly on my site. The next item I want to show you, we're going to continue down this list here, is a calendar. Let's see, I click on this and it gives me a list of all the calendars that I have access to. And you can see that it's a long list, but they're listed alphabetically. So I have to go down to the letter R, and there's mine. I'm going to click on my name, hit insert, and there is a visual representation of my Google Calendar. And I want to emphasize it's a visual representation. I can't edit my calendar here. Nobody else can edit my calendar just by seeing it on here. It's just a way for other people to see without necessarily giving them direct access to my Google Calendar. And likewise, if I make any changes, I have to go to my calendar itself and make a change, and then it will show up on this representation of the calendar. People who do visit can scroll between the days. They can view it a week at a time, a month at a time. They can change what they see, they just can't change any of the content of the calendar. It's kind of a nice feature to have, especially if you plan on sharing this out with parents. Next item down the list is a Google map. And when I click on that, you can enter any map you want from Google Maps. So let's say I used to work at Wadowitz. I'm going to type in Wadowitz Elementary School. There it is right there on Yout Street. And I will click select. And it is going to put that Google map in my site. And what's nice is it isn't interactive. It works directly with the Google Maps app. People can click on here to get directions. They can make the map bigger. They can zoom in. They can zoom out. It's really a nice feature, especially if you're trying to work on something like maybe that field trip noticed before and you have some parents who are meeting you at the location. You could actually embed this in your site simply by clicking on this map button off to the right. You can see below there are other buttons here. I'm not going to go into them into great detail. Feel free to check them out on your own. The ones that I've demonstrated for you are covered in the skills on the Google Teacher Center. Let's move this around up here. All right, so I said before this text was kind of small. Things look kind of somewhat hodgepodge. I want to kind of add a little bit more professionalism, I guess, to this site. You do have some options with editing and customizing, although they are very limited. So let's say I have my text here and I want to make this bigger. When I click on the text box, I have some options here. One of them is to change the type of the text. So you can see I made it bigger that way. I can make it bold. I have to highlight it first. I can make it bold. I can italicize it. You can change the orientation. This would be if you want to turn that text into a link. And then you can see the trash can, which allows you to delete it. That's about it. That's the extent. I can't change this text to a different color. I can't change it to a different font unless I go back to the theme and pick one of the fonts that is allowed for me. So you may feel like it's really restrictive, and it is, but you get used to it. Likewise, I have these different sections here, and you can see, you may be able to see this faint dotted line here that divides my sections. So like right now, this text and the notebook image are in one section. The Google Slides and the YouTube video are in a different one. And let's say I just want to set them apart from each other. When I hover over them, you'll notice 3 buttons appear. The trash can is obviously if I want to delete that entire section, including everything that's in it. This icon duplicates the section, and this palette allows me to change the colors. And again, I'm limited to the colors that my theme has set aside for me. So I can make it, that one doesn't look very different at all, but if I pick the green one, now you can see, okay, it's clear that I have different sections, and that green, sets it off. It makes it stand out. Something else I'd like you to notice, and it's maybe very difficult to see during this presentation, but when I do hover over here, right where my mouse is, are a series of tiny dots. That's called a handle, and that allows me to move this section around. So when I move my mouse on top of the dots and click and hold the button down, I can drag this around. And what I want you to see is when I do move it around, you'll notice a blue line that appears. That blue line indicates where the section will go when I let go of the mouse button, like that. And so again, you're limited as to how you can move it. Excuse me, your sections are going to always be stacked one on top of the other. But those handles at least allow you to move them up and down. So if you think that your calendar is a little more important and you want to move that to the top, you can just drag it, look for that blue line, and let go. And like I said before, if you want, you realize, oh, you know what, that green really isn't doing much for me. I want to go back to my theme and change it, and let's try this yellow. You can do that option. You'll notice there's also a paint can here if you do want to pick different colors. This is one of the areas where you do have a little bit more free range, I guess, in your ability to choose colors. Not much, but a little bit. All right. The next part I'm going to demonstrate here is something that is rather important, and that is how others will view your website. The first thing I want to point out is this button right here. It looks like a person with a plus sign next to them. When I click on that, it brings up the sharing menu, very similar to the sharing menu in Google Docs. So let's say if I type in Julia's name here, This is giving her permission not to look at my site, but actually permission to be an editor. She has the ability to edit my site. If I go ahead and hit send, it's going to give her an email and let her know that I've added her as an editor to this site. So when she goes in, she's going to look exactly at what we're looking at right now, and she's going to have the ability to move things around, add text, remove text, everything that I can do. That's good if you want someone else to help you collaborate on your site. That is definitely not the way to get people to view your site. If you want to share this with parents, students, other colleagues, and you just want them to look at what you have on your site, that's this button right here that says publish. So when I click publish, right now, let's see if I can grab it today. This text that I've highlighted right here is going to be your website address. That is what you're going to copy and send out either via email, the Remind app, Class Dojo, however you communicate out to families or whomever you want to view your site. You're going to copy and paste your link from here. And that should stay the same all the time unless you go in and change it. But then I want to draw your attention to this, where it says anyone at RUSD can view this. This is something you're only going to see when you're working within the RUSD domain. When you go into the Teacher Center or when you're ready to take your exam, this part right here that my mouse is hovering over may look slightly different, and that's okay. That's just because you're actually working outside of our domain. You're not in your RUSD account, you're in a different account. So don't let that throw you off. Then the big button right here says publish. In order for the world to view your website, you need to publish it, and that means click this button. And when you do, that means the site is live, the site is active and ready for the world to see. Right now, nobody could see this. If I gave out this link and never clicked the publish button, nobody would be able to click on that. It would actually give them an error when that was happening. So I'm not going to click the publish button because I'm actually not going to make this site live, but I want you to demonstrate that. Likewise, anytime you make changes to your site, and it should be some significant changes, not every time you change the text, you need to go back and publish again. Unlike Google Docs and Google Sheets and things like that, it doesn't update in live time. And that's intentional. You don't want to have yourself playing with the text and the fonts and all that and having people watch you work on that. So any changes you make aren't active to the world at large until you click this publish button again. The website will always stay the same. The address will always stay the same. But the changes won't take place for the viewers until you hit publish. That kind of brings me to the end of what I want to cover in relation to what is expected in the Teacher Center. So I'm going to throw it open to some Q&A here. Julia, do we have anything that I need to go over?
Yeah, we just have a couple. So let's see. Melanie asks, can you rotate images like that notebook icon?
Not here. I wish you could. You would have to find a way, like if you had an image on your computer, you would rotate it before you brought it up here. Unless they've changed that recently. No, they haven't. Yeah, I wish you could.
That's okay. Alana says, can you go back over how to upload a YouTube video?
Sure. So I'm just going to go to the bottom of the page here, and I'm going to click on the insert button. And I'm going to scroll down on this list till I see YouTube. And I'm going to type what I want to look for. Let's just, I don't know, let's look for Wisconsin. Oops, how does if I click Wisconsin? All right, and you can see there's lots of different Wisconsin related videos here. So I can just click on one. Oh, Wisconsin's best foods. I just click on the video, I hit select, and it automatically puts it in place. I could make this bigger if I wanted. I can make it smaller. That burger actually looks kind of gross. And I can move it around the screen, but again, they can view it within the screen. Good question.
Sarah asks, what is the embedded option for?
That is, show everybody what you're talking about there. This button right here, embed. If you want to pull something from a different website and have it actually show up on yours, that would be where you'd use that option. I'm fairly certain that that's not part of the Teacher Center. It's a rather advanced option and something that I wouldn't have anybody kind of tinker with. until you feel a lot more comfortable with all of the other features here. But it's a way to draw in bits and pieces from other people's websites.
Good question. I think we're caught up right now, so if anyone else wants to add a question about Google Sites and what Randy demonstrated to the chat. Let's see. Sue says, I wish you would have a tutorial to cover doc drives and how to share, delete, save. So actually, Sue, we have separate courses going on right now. And we do cover some things like Google Drive is covered, Google Docs is covered, and those items that you listed, like sharing and deleting and saving, those would be covered in our courses on My Learning Plan right now.
Yeah, for the next few weeks, they're going to be out there, so take a look. I know there's at least 3 per week for each of the app pairings.
Courtney asks, would we want to have both a site and classroom for students? Could you see a need for them both? I'm guessing Google Classroom.
That all depends on, I guess, what you're hoping to accomplish. Google Classroom is really a good place to assign work, and you can throw announcements in there. If you're looking for just kind of a home page where you want general classroom information, maybe a list of class rules, contact information, your calendar like you see here, that's what a website's for. In fact, my kind of rule of thumb with websites is you kind of want to set it and forget it. And so the difference between being Google Classroom, you're working with it all the time, you're updating it regularly. A Google site, generally, you just want to set it and draw parents' attention to it for very general base level information. So you can have both. There's no reason you have to. It all depends on, I guess, what you're hoping to accomplish.
Okay. Let's see. Courtney says, so the site could be more for parents. It could be, yeah.
It could be I know some teachers use sites maybe to share out pictures from a Halloween party or a video of a class presentation. You could certainly do that in Google Classroom as well. I think it's a little easier to build it into a site. And that way it's more readily accessible. But yeah, the thing you would never want to do with a site is use that to assign work. It's just not, that's not the intent of a Google site.
Amy asked, is it required going forward to set up a site? We have not heard that, Amy. We are just aware of the Google Classroom expectation. So
yeah, I've not heard anything to that effect. The reason that we're covering it is because it is covered in the Google certification process. So we want to make sure you're prepared, but I haven't heard any requirements from RUSD.
Okay, it looks like we're caught up on the chat. So I'm just gonna wrap up our presentation right now by leaving you with some suggestions that Randy and I have for you. So the first is to always use Chrome as your browser. That means if you're preparing for the units, you're going through Google's tutorials, you always want to use Google Chrome. And again, when you go to take the exam, you want to make sure you're using Google Chrome. The next thing that I think is really nice about the Google products is they're very intuitive. So look for similarities between the apps. You know, today we showed you how to work with Calendar and Sites. They're 2 completely different apps, but there are some similarities. So those 3 vertical dots, for example, whenever you see that in a Google product, it's always going to give you more options. So use that as a way to build your confidence as you're learning the differences between these apps. Look for similarities. The next thing that we kind of touched on already is we just want to remind you that when you take the certification exam, it's going to be a scenario. So they will give you login information to have a separate Gmail account. That's why we pointed out to you, you won't have your class link like you're used to. You'll have this separate account, and then you'll be able to work through the scenarios with those features. And then finally, we just want to remind you that today's session was recorded, and we're actually going to share that with you in a day or so via email. That way you can pause, rewind, watch this recording again as an extra way to review. So we hope you find that helpful. And then Randy,
Go
sorry.
ahead. What I have up on the screen right now, I have a couple of parting bits of information for everyone. First is something I said in the beginning of the session. It is extremely important. As part of the Google certification process, you cannot disclose any specific items in regards to the certification exam. Google requires all who take the exam to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Therefore, we cannot share specific exam details. Failure to follow these guidelines, well, we already said result in removal of this session, but that is important. I mean, you can talk about the exam, you can say, oh, it was easy, it was hard, whatever, but don't say on question 14, it asks you to do A, B, and C, because it's akin to cheating and they don't want you to do that. And that includes in these sessions. Don't type anything in the chat. And Julia and myself, we have gone through the process. We're limited as to how much we can tell you. So just be aware of that. Here is a list of the 6 tech integrators in the district. If you would need any further information, some support with your Google apps, take a look and see which one matches up with your school and send a message out to them via email. And then our last slide here is who to contact specifically for help. And you're going to receive a copy of this presentation also. If you have technical issues related to the lessons in the Teacher Center or the exam, you need to contact Google. They are the keepers of all of that information. They're the ones who can fix your problems when you're in the Teacher Center or taking the exam. Unfortunately, we cannot. And this link down here at the bottom is actually a link directly to their support site for certification. If you have a question about what RUSD expects from you related to this professional learning, the Professional Learning Department has created a frequently asked questions document, which is shared right here. We also have a link to the PL department's email, so you can contact them. And finally, if you have a question related to one of the apps, you need some help with Sheets or with Google Sites, send a message to your building's tech integrator, and one of us will be glad to help you with that.